In this video, we're going to talk about file management, specifically about your folder organization. So to organize your folders, you have to create a mental model or a map of how you are going to logically find your files and folders when you're looking for them in the future. Usually that involves creating first some top level categories. What are the big categories under which you store your important documents? One example of a logical structure you can follow is what is called PARA, P-A-R-A, and that stands for projects. So this is where you would store the current work that you are working on for uni or other purposes, or the projects you're working on. There's also areas, so this might be larger areas in your life that aren't involved in projects. So that might be bills, hobbies, health, things like that. Then you would have resources. Now the resources are things that you're going to refer back to regardless of what the project is or the area in your life. So an example that I would have, for instance, is I have a library of ebooks that I like to consult with when I want to check on things, and it's not necessarily attached to a single project, so it makes sense to store them in their own area. And lastly, you have archive. So this is for all of the folders of work that aren't current, that you probably won't need to look at for months, maybe years at a time, and you can pop them in there when you're no longer using them so that you have them if you need them in the future, but they're not taking up the current space and competing with your current projects. Let's look at one of these top level categories of projects. So your projects might have 3 subfolders within it, and that could be uni for your university projects. It could have another folder, freelance, for the freelancing projects, and personal for your side projects. Within each of these folders, you might have the year, so that, for instance, with uni, you know that you're going to be here for a number of years, and you could have a separate folder for each year so that you can easily find your first year, second year, and third year projects. Then you might divide it into semester 1 and semester 2, depending on if you feel the need to drill down that much further, because you also then want to have the different units. And you might decide that since you're only doing 4 units per semester, you can keep them all in 2024 or 2025, and you don't need to break it into semesters. It just depends on what makes it easier for you to find the files later on. So just to recap, make sure you create your structure for how you're going to keep your folders moving forward. It'll make it a lot easier for yourself to find those folders in the future. So think of the big categories first, and I used the example of PARA of projects, areas, resources, and archive. Then think of the categories within that and how you'll make it easy to find things. So in projects, you will probably have a folder called university or uni, and think of the structure from then on in. Just break it down each time you go into a folder level. What's going to make it easy to find these folders and files again? And sometimes that will be completely up to you. So an example might be, once you drill down and you've got your folder for user interface design, for instance, how are you going to put those subfolders together to organize the files within that? You might have unit outline and briefs. You might have current work. You might have submitted assignments. You could organize it in whatever way you want, but as long as you're consistent and you can find those things easily again. And just as one last thought, back up, back up, back up. Make sure you're always backing up your work in 3 different places, and back it up often enough that if something catastrophic happens to your computer, you can easily get a backed up copy, because remember, however long it is between backups, that's the amount of time you've got to work on the project to redo it for submission. So usually at the start of a project, maybe once per week. As you're getting closer, you'll be wanting to back it up once a day, maybe once every couple of hours once you get close to that deadline. So good luck, and I hope you find your files easily in the future.